different, but it's very pretty out here. I believe they're setting up the flag now.
What's up, everybody? XRP back with another one. How's everybody doing out there? XRP, the best digital asset, the fastest, most secure, most cost-efficient, eco-friendly, enterprise use ready, send money anywhere in the world instantly. I found the article about the bad blood between Ripple and Stellar in an aired all tell report. There's a 15,000 word story that takes detailed look at the alleged historical bad blood between the centralized payment network startup Ripple Labs and Stellar, and the impact of the relationship on the advance in the wider Bitcoin ecosystem. The interpersonal story of Stellar and Ripple Labs is emblematic of the turmoil roiling in the entire industry. The article penned by Michael Craig reads, "It has everything: sex, huge money, fraud, genius, betrayal, international intrigue, and government raids." Of particular note are the story's main participants, Jed McCaleb, the founder of now defunct Bitcoin exchange Mt. Gox, Ripple Labs, and Stellar executive director Joyce Kim, who bear the brunt of the article's barbs. The Observer reports that McCaleb and Kim have long had a personal relationship that complicated McCaleb's relationship with other senior executive and board members at Ripple Labs, and ultimately led to McCaleb to leave the company and found competitor Stellar. Also included in the report are allegations that hit home far beyond the companies themselves, as it suggests the feud at the company has had implications for mobile payment startup Stripe and banking giant Wells Fargo, among others. So this CoinDesk article is just like a breakdown of the entire 15,000 page article. We're going to go over this breakdown and then cover a little bit of the article itself. Wells Fargo Bitcoin unit collapses. Of all the details included in the report, however, none perhaps has a greater relevance than the revelation that U.S. banking giant Wells Fargo had assembled a task force compromising 20 of its top executives and advisors that was aimed at finding ways it could become the first bank to embrace cryptocurrency. The report argues that due to a combination of the Mt. Gox collapse, the closure of Silk Road, and McCaleb's personal track record, the unit was disbanded in 2014. Predictably, Wells Fargo got cold feet, Craig writes. At the bank, the crypto blackout was so severe that it extended not only to shutting the accounts that cleared funds from crypto companies, but even those companies operating accounts were shut down. This includes the accounts held by Ripple Labs, whose CEO Chris Larsen, the paper said, had more than 20-year relationship with the bank prior to the decision. "The problem is your connection to McCaleb," Larsen was told, according to the report. "The guy founded Mt. Gox. You got to get that guy out of there or we won't bank you." At the time, McCaleb was no longer with the company, but the report suggests even his association as a board member was enough to make Wells Fargo skittish and move ahead with the dismantling of its nascent cryptocurrency initiative. So Chris Larsen had a 20-year relationship with the bank, but that was all messed up due to the relationship with McCaleb. So Wells Fargo got cold feet, and the team that they assembled that was probably gonna, research the RippleNet and XRP and probably be the first bank to use cryptocurrencies, but that was all squashed due to the relationship with McCaleb. Turbulent times at Ripple. Speaking to the Observer, Kraken CEO and Ripple Labs investor Jesse Powell indicated that he first introduced McCaleb and Kim, and that before long, Ripple had purchased Kim's company, Simple Honey, and brought her into the team. I don't think they're doing anything with the Simple Honey. I think just there. The Observer described her tenure as one not only rocky, but saw her attempting to play up her importance and that of McCaleb. Eventually, the report argues that Larsen needed to intervene. Chris sat her down and was like, "Joyce, you're a CEO. It's going to be hard fitting in. You're obviously reporting to me. Two cultures coming together is always a hard thing. Let's talk about everything before we do it, just to make sure everything is good." And Joyce just was, of course, would inherit, an insider said. but she wasn't trying to hear anything Chris Larson was saying. She's with McCaleb. Kim is alleged as having a Yoko Ono role at the company, according to those who spoke to the report. This is Jed's thing. When you're in a private conversation with him, all of a sudden Joyce is CC'd on the private conversation. Even when the conversation includes the person saying, I don't want you to share this with Joyce. So not only does he disregard that request, but he's letting you know she knows you don't like her, another source said. Kim's tenure lasted only 6 weeks. McCaleb, the report contends, soon lost interest in the project. The Stripe deal squashed. The end result of the ensuing turmoil is that a deal that would have seen Ripple Labs purchased by Stripe for $13 million in cash never came to pass. The Observer indicated it was unable to uncover an exact reason for the deal's demise. Yet another sticking point, however, was that most of the relationship team at Ripple Labs held significant holdings of its altcoin XRP. McCaleb and Larson, for example, both held 9 billion XRP, a factor that discouraged many in the wider Bitcoin market from trusting the company. At the time, Pal also sought to intervene to fix what he described as the company's ongoing PR problem. All of the problems came together, the report said in a meeting, and McCaleb's attempted to have Larson removed from the company for reasons not disclosed. Larson kept his role, however, by a 5-1 vote, with McCaleb providing the dissenting voice. Every single person begged Jed not to make us choose between him and Chris Larson, said Roger Ver, a VC investor in Ripple Labs. In the end, the vote was unanimous that Chris should stay. Only person who disagreed was Jed. Jed McCaleb tried to get Chris Larson out, which eventually backfired and got him voted off the island. Tax on Stellar. McCaleb would go on to fund Stellar, taking a $3 million investment from Stripe. Though the article questions the nature of the relationship between the companies. For example, Stellar's former head of community told the publication that the two companies are quite close, with everything Stellar does having to go through Stripe. Still, Stripe's relationship with Wells Fargo, the report suggested, has put limits on how close the two companies can publicly appear. The report quoted those close to the co-founder, Patrick Collison, as describing him as privately dismissive of banks, while highlighting the reliance of the San Francisco-based payment company has on institutions like Wells Fargo. The article went on to question Stellar's destination of as a nonprofit, arguing that the tax expert believed this claim won't hold up under regulatory scrutiny. Once the IRS pieces together how Stellar benefits McCaleb, Patrick Collison, and any other insider receiving Stellar lumens or fattening up in the initial distribution, it will likely find the venture inconsistent with the charitable purpose of the 501c3 exemption. It looks like Caleb's trying to do a lot of shady things. That's why he was kicked off. Here goes the original document, 1,500 word document. I have all the links below if you guys want to go into this in detail. When Mr. McCaleb left Ripple Labs, the dynamic play that he took his ball and started Stellar, only it really wasn't his ball, and he didn't really start anything new, because he was just copying off Ripple. The strategic backbone of Ripple Labs appears to be Mr. Brittle, the chief strategist, Mr. Shrem, whose credentials as a Bitcoin pioneer stack up with anyone, including Mr. McCaleb, explained to the Observer that Mr. McCaleb and Mr. Brittle conceived of Ripple Labs together and brought in Mr. Larson. Stellar's technology is closely derived from Ripple Labs using a GitHub search. The Observer found 177 instances where Stellar's code included the instruction BFALCOTODO. The reference is apparently to Vinny Falco, senior C++ engineer at Ripple Labs. Here it is right here, Falco. So he was pretty much still in the code from Ripple Labs. Just putting in and just plugging it in. The observer, Andrew White, a programmer who is close to Mr. McCaleb and Mr. Powell, asked Vitalik Buterin, CEO of Ethereum and a crypto expert, universally regarded as a straight shooter, about the two currencies. Mr. Buterin puts it pretty starkly. Andrew White, so do you have any predictions about Stellar/Ripple? Vitalik Buterin, Stellar is going to fail in my opinion. Ripple has a better team. They're not a parasitic fork, defined as a fork which takes code and adds basically nothing original. And I'm sure Ripple has better connections than Stripe does. Vitalik Buterin, Stellar does feel more community friendly, but the protocol primarily value proposition is working with the banks. The community thinks decentralized exchange is so 2012. Cracks in Stellar software appeared last September 20th when several of Stellar's validating nodes started failing. The outage lasted 16 hours, bringing all transactions to a halt. No one at Stellar was able to address the problem or communicate with the Stellar community during that time. According to Mr. McCaleb on Stellar's website, at the time, the majority of us were at a company off-site working. The September 20th outage was a minor compared to the ledger fork that occurred in early December. On Tuesday, December 2nd, the node on Stellar Network began to disagree. This was not disclosed until Mrs. Kim blogged about it 3 days later. So Stellar's node started failing, and the outage lasted 16 hours, and nothing was going on. The team didn't say anything, so people were just left with the failing system. This is clearly the end of the line for Stellar. I mean, they're not admitting that, but I mean, my God, you might as well be running a currency on an Excel spreadsheet. Stellar is now a counterparty to a currency, and it's a very weak counterparty. If Stellar Development Corp goes out of business, holders have nothing. Compare that to Ripple or Bitcoin. If there was no Ripple Labs, Ripple the currency would still exist, just like Bitcoin. The new proposed Stellar protocol defeats the whole purpose of distributing protocol, and they've had to stop that because their consensus was broken. They're trying to pin this on Ripple, but from where I sit, Ripple has never been more stable. They've never been doing more transactions and having something like 90 people on the team. I suspect Jed probably broke something about a month ago, but make no mistake, this is catastrophic for them. This idea that Jed is just going to invent a new consensus system in a couple months, and their phony 4 million accounts will just sit there and wait. The insider trails off and collects his thoughts. At its core, Stellar is no longer a cryptocurrency. It's a token from a counterparty. And what is the risk of that counterparty? They don't disclose how much money they make. I mean, that's what the SEC exists, right? So not only can you rely on transactions of any kind, so not only can you not rely on transactions of any kind going through, because as the sole validator, Stellar is the entire arbitrator of that. You're holding an asset that used to be a digital asset that is now a digital liability. That's a fundamental change, especially ironic coming from Jed, the pursuist libertarian. Now he runs a sort of unregistered central issue of liability. It's really stunning. Ask what Stellar should have done when the currency forked. Insider said they should have shut down. They shouldn't just be out there like this. And I can't believe the board, respected guys like Patrick and Keith, would expose himself like this. They're now violating every MSB license. There's no ambiguity here. It's just straight up a central issue of liability. In the aftermath of Stellar's December 5th disaster, one juicy irony caught the eye of experienced watchers of the space. After spending a year dissing Ripple Labs at every opportunity, Stellar was suddenly doing everything it could to link the two companies in the public mind. In fact, Mrs. Kim's short mystery statement, obscurely titled Safety, Liveliness, and Fault Tolerance, the Consensus Choices, mentions Ripple 6 times, including in the first sentence. In describing Stellar's failure, she is clearly hoping that people will conclude that Ripple is also vulnerable, despite the fact that Ripple has never forked, even though it has been around far longer than Stellar and has a market cap of 10 times greater. So they're trying to throw in Ripple with all their mishaps of the Stellar protocol. and they're trying to make Ripple look bad every time something goes wrong with them. But it's not happening. So why the sudden reliance on the phrase Ripple Stellar consensus system? According to one source who knows Mr. McCaleb and Mrs. Kim well, he in particular will try to blame Ripple. Jed is not a very good chess player. I've seen it time and time again. He makes these bold moves, very aggressive, like the whole Jed bringing Joyce into Ripple Labs thing was very aggressive. To do that, you have to be super confident, and somehow between Joyce and Jed, they convinced the likes the Collison to come along, right? So that's their MO. They do these bold things and have no chance to succeed. I think that bringing this up as a Ripple Stellar failure is strategically a huge mistake because Ripple is 50 times the size of Stellar, but has never had a consensus error. And now Jed's getting publicly called out, and I'm sure the Ripple guys are loving it because they never comment and are just going to let him hang himself. Observer asked the source to explain in layman's terms why Stellar would be vulnerable and Ripple would not, since Stellar does not in fact originate from Ripple's code. I think Jed is overconfident, the source said. He thinks he is the investor of the technology. The truth is, stuff he forked and the stuff that Ripple uses today are very different. Ripple Labs has a big team and are perfecting all day long. While at Stellar, it's Jed and another guy, and the models are different, and they very much benefit Ripple Labs. You've got to understand what the disaster must be doing to Jed personally, continued the source, with a note of anguish for his friend and suffering buddy. Think about what Bitcoin is. The whole idea behind it is I don't trust even the US government to be a backing. I don't even trust US governments to be backing a dollar. The crypto purists like Jed are so fixated on the idea that even US governments is not strong enough as a counterparty. And now they have the most fragile and speculative entity backing your new currency. That kind of centralization is the polar opposite of what the whole thing started as. It got to be particularly devastating for someone like Jed. So that's pretty much it, guys. The bad blood between Ripple and Stellar. I don't know if Stellar will do good or do bad. This isn't financial advice. We'll see what happens. Do hold a little bit of Stellar. But I mean, after reading all of this, I might as well just transfer it back to XRP. You can see clearly that Ripple and XRP are the better company and the better technology. McCaleb's just trying to copy and paste and do whatever he can to make them look bad and make him look good, but he already has a bad track record. And he messed up the whole Wells Fargo thing, so who knows what Ripple Labs would be now if they didn't even have to deal with this guy or who's even on the team. But we'll see what happens, guys. That's all I have for this video. I'm not a financial advisor, but you guys already know XRP is the best and the fastest, and that's what I'm stuffing my bags with. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, guys.
Said it was lies, that FUD that you was talking made you miss out the prize. Now you left behind trying to chase the high price. I'm glad you still alive to see how far we rise. Into the night skies, grab the bull by the horns and live out your life. Bull run, we all going crazy. That crypto jumping, XRP the standard, we